Okay, so today just going to look at Codable protocol and how you can version structs, because obviously as you develop things sometimes you want to change your struct but you want to load in all the old data that use the previous version, and sometimes that can be a bit tricky, but this is a nice way to do it, that I've been using something similar to this for some time, but here is a quick tour of versioning Codable structs. So we start off with a simple person, this version 1 struct. That's our version, we just have a name. It's like, early days. But at some point we definitely decided that a name is not enough. We want to split that to first name and last name. So we made a version 2 of the struct, and that is currently the current version of the person is type aliased to person 2. And this is just normal. These are all just normal structs. The only difference is that version 2 is able to take a version 1 and compose a new version 2 by and this is, this becomes, you make assumptions here. It's not going to work for everything. This is really quick and dirty, but basically we're converting our single string name into 2 separate things, first name and last name. So every new version just needs to be able to construct itself from the previous version in some way, or throw an error or whatever. But if you do it incrementally, you should be able to make some reasonable choices. And then we maintain a list of our versions in this version serializer, like this. So we've got V100 is a V1, V200 is a V2, and as we add versions, and I'll demonstrate how to do that, we just maintain this list, and this is our serializer. So because it's got nils, we don't have to initialize it with any other version than the one we're using. And then we make that codable, because this is what we're going to save off or load at a later stage. And in our decoder initializer, what we do is the coding keys are generated automatically, and they'll be V1 and V2. So we just try to construct the latest version we can. So first of all, we try to construct a V2 with the key V2, and if that works, then we're in business. We can set that value. But if it doesn't, then we get the previous version and we try to construct the previous version. And if that works, we can again we can just then construct the current version from the previous version. Else we're just failing. And by the way, I put all of this in when I'm developing stuff like this. I start off in a playground and get frustrated that I can't run any tests, and I end up making this kind of test playground, basically a bunch of tests that help me run the code in small steps whilst I develop it. So that's why that's it. So this is it. This is the version control. Every time we add a version, we need to update it here and here. But that's it. It's done. Then in the tests, we've got a migration here, where we migrate from a 1 to a version 2. Let's put a breakpoint in there and run that. So let's grab that. So you can see we've populated version 2 of our versions with the data from a version 1. So we've basically been able to build this person, which is a person v2, out of old data, out of data that was saved as a version 1. So the migration works, and now it's migrated. When we save it, when we encode it, because it's in this serializer, when it gets encoded, it's just going to encode version 2 because that's actually the only thing that's not nil. And then it's migrated fully. It will never trigger the previous version start the code. And that's it. Continue. All the tests succeeded. So how do we add a version? So let's add a new version. Going to upgrade it to version 3, and this time I'm going to base it off of version 2. So here's version 3, and we're going to add in an age. Now we've got to make a decision here. I'm going to make it optional because we've added this at a late stage and we can't really derive the age from last name or first name. We're going to make it optional, or we're going to have to think of a default age, or we're going to have to make this an enum with a associated value of an int. But optional will work, and most people would say that's fine. And that over time, say we get to version 100 and everyone's got an age, we can just drop the optionalness from it. So it's going to be age in years. So that's our new version. We need to build it from the previous version, which is version 2. Oops, wrong button. Version 2. And we just need to decide that, to be honest, we're just able to pass in first name and last name from the previous version. And age can be nil. So we don't know the age because it's come from an old version which we didn't have ages for. We now need to add that to our serializer, version 3, and that's going to build version 3. And then the final bit here is we need to change this. So here's the interest. So we want to try to make a version 3 from the 3 key. And if that's successful, we're going to make it 3. This is really cool because this is where all this Swift type checking helps us massively. Now we need to add in the previous version is a 2. So if we're version 2, then what are we going to do? Well, we can bucket brigade these, so we can, that's actually more like this. So we're just going to make our version 3 from the previous version 2. So that'll work. now we have a version 1. So with 2 versions we need to return here. I could probably do something about this if let code. Sometimes you have to do these horrid looking things though. Right, so now we've got a version 1. So how do we get from version 1 to version 3? Well, it's quite easy, because what we can do is construct a version 2 first. So we can actually make a version 3 from a previous version, which is a person v2, and we're going to make a previous from a previous version, which is our previous version, and there we have it. So every single version can be added just like that, and that's it. It's pretty simple. Should we try and test it? Let's migrate to version 3. With our new age. And there you go. That's why I like doing these little tests even when I'm developing, because you can just run it and you know it's worked. That's it. That is how to add versioning with key changing. So you can delete keys, introduce new keys, split a key into 2 different keys, or just do it just by adding an optional version key. And it's very simple, very mechanical. Just add in your versions to this list in the serializer, and then you just have to keep adding them to the decoder. Okay, that is it.